My guy just checked in. Good Senator Parker. Give him. Oh yeah, pin the comment, right? Hold on, I got a pin. How you doing, sir?
Josh, what's up? How you doing?
I'm excellent. I'm excellent, man.
I'm a little tardy. I apologize.
That's it's good. That's good. It's all good, man. It's all good. We here now.
Yeah, I see. I like the bow tie.
You see, I had to go
You
on my.
making it happen.
You inspired me to go into my bow tie collection. I said I can't go on. I can't go on with my good brother and not be,
I
not be
love it.
sharp.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
How are you doing?
I'm great and grateful. Just trying to make my way in the cold, cruel world.
Yo, couldn't have said it better myself, man. Couldn't have said it better myself. I appreciate you for chopping it up with us for a bit.
Absolutely.
Definitely, man. I was doing my homework today. I didn't realize you went to 193, you went to
Yep.
Huddy, and you
Yep.
went to Midwood.
Yo, I'm a Flatbush kid. Like
I
this
went
is
to I
real.
went to 193.
Oh, get out of here.
I live
But I'm
across
sure
the
you went
street.
there when it was the Gil Hodges School.
No, I was at the borderline. I'm not that. I'm
Okay.
not
All
that bad.
right.
I was at 193. I think it turned to Gil Hodges a little later.
Right.
Where did
Yeah.
you grow up at?
So I was actually born in the Bushwick Projects
Okay.
in 390 Bushwick, right?
Okay.
And I used to actually, funny enough, used to get bused from Bushwick to 193. So I've been going to 193 since kindergarten.
Wow.
My mother always worked at Brooklyn College. And so when my parents bought a house when I was about 9, 10 years old, we moved to the junction. So I live on Avenue H right down the block from Target. I've been living here for 40 some odd years.
Wow.
So I went to, like you said, I went to 193, went to Huddy. I went to Huddy Annex on Kings Highway.
Kings Highway, yes,
Right?
definitely.
Yep. And then I went to Huddy, Maine over on Nostrand Avenue and Avenue K. And then, of course, went to Midwood.
Wow. I grew up across the street from Huddy. Everybody I know, I didn't go to Midwood, but that's where I chain and broke. But that's my area. So,
but everybody can't be great. I'm just saying.
I love it. I love it. What are some of the things that growing up in the community that you now kind of work with? Like, what are some of those things that kind of stuck with you that made you want to get into what you do now?
Well, one of the main things was just that, growing up in this community, I just knew how many good, hardworking people there were in this community, right? Coming from this community, I knew people who owned the stores. I knew people, who lived in the houses. And I thought that this community could be better. And I thought that the community deserved more, especially from government. And so, I never moved because I was always like, so first of all, I should let you know, like, I've always wanted to be in politics, right? So my mother tells the story that when I was really young, like 7 or 8 years old, when she used to pick me up from PS 193, that I used to ask her how come white people live. 193 is right in that Midwood area, right? Like
right on Bedford and L.
Right. And so when I used to come out of 193, I used to be like, why do these white people live in these really nice communities and we live in the projects? And my mother said, well, she didn't know. And I said, well, I want to be president so I can help black people live better. And my mother, in her infinite wisdom, told me to be president, I had to be a lawyer, right? Thinking that at minimum she'll get an attorney out the deal. But I always had this desire and this drive to want to represent my community in the political process, right? And so it's always kind of been my plan, even after I went to college. And by the way, being a politician was my second vocation. I played football at Midwood, and I always thought I was going to be a professional football player. Went from Midwood to Penn State. Hoping to play football. I never played football, but I did learn what I needed to learn in order to come back and represent the community. And so it's really about, for me, the families of this community and the people that I know walking down the street, because this is my neighborhood. This is my community. This is where I've lived for 46 plus years. And so, it's really just a desire to see that place better every single day.
Yeah, and it has every year, Flatbush, over the years. We've had dark times. What time was it that you went to school, that you said you was thinking about, you wanted to make things better as far as community help? Was that the 80s, 70s?
Yeah, I was actually, believe it or not, the 70s, right? And then I graduated from Midwood in 1985.
Okay.
Right? Started at Midwood in 1982, right? Because Huddy, I went to Huddy from 7th, 8th, and 9th. and then went to Midwood as a sophomore, which is different than how most people do it now. Yeah, but that's so yes, 70s, 80s. Yeah, it was a while ago. It was a while ago.
I'm glad you're still here with us.
Look, me too.
Definitely. Has it been rewarding? Has this journey been rewarding that you thought it would be, or has it been just like a daunting task?
It's been both, right? I mean, some amazing work here. One of the biggest things I think I've done is I brought a small business development center to Brooklyn College, so that people who want to become entrepreneurs, there's a place where they can go to get technical assistance. The biggest problem in terms of Black and Latino business has to do with access to capital and access to the technical assistance of understanding how to run their business. In our communities, the problem is you have people who know how to cook food, don't know how to run a restaurant. People could build a table, don't know how to sell furniture, right? And so that technical assistance around the business end of the business is important, as well, again, as access to capital. As we're seeing right now with this P3 program that came out of the federal government, in the first round, nobody in our community got any of the money. That's how it's been, though, generally, right? And so that Small Business Development Center at Brooklyn College, which I partnered with Chuck Schumer, and at the time, Congressman Ed Towns, who's now retired. Yep. I partnered with them to get the money to bring that center here. And so it's doing some work. We hope to meet with President Michelle Anderson soon and talk about expanding the role and the work of that institution. And then we've done things like work to get the junction bid, which has made a real significant difference. In that area. I worked along with the Triangle developers to help bring Target there, which I remember what Target was a parking lot for
parking lot. In Northeastern was across the street.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And people, Northeastern was right where the Nike store is.
Right.
And people didn't want that mall there. And now you can't keep people out of Target. That's probably the highest grossing Target in the country. I mean, many people be up in there.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, kind of working with the community so they can understand the vision and understand how we can grow has been really, really important. But this, again, as you indicated, there's been a lot of dark spots, right? There's been, for a community as middle class as it is, there's been an unusual amount of crime and violence in our community. In part because we have one of the largest underserved populations of young people in the entire city of New York, right? And so the problem we have is that this is a working class community, right? It's not a poor community. So when we talk about youth development dollars, it's really difficult to get those programs funded in our community, right? And so that's been, so our gang population has been crazy around the city. We didn't have, there's always gangs in the city, but not like we have now, right? A couple of little neighborhood gangs, but you didn't have
network of
the way you have
a network of gangs.
Right. And so we've been working really hard to address that issue. Actually working right now with Councilwoman Farrah Lewis to bring a youth development center right near, how am I gonna say, Vanderbilt, right near 361, which used to be 269, now it's 369.
Right.
Near Flatbush Gardens. The names have changed.
Yes.
But trying to bring some more programming to the community so that people, and particularly our young people, have more to do and have places to go to interact with each other.
That's amazing, man. I have two questions kind of based off of that. Because a lot of what I wanted to talk to you about was just informing people, where to get these grants from, where these programs are. And one of the questions I heard you say about these different programs, some of this stuff is here where you're at. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Okay. How do people get on at grassroots levels? Who do they speak to? Is that because you're a senator, is there a public advocate? Where do we do petitions and we do rallies? Who does that energy go to? Who should it go to?
Right. So let me just push back on the notion that people are here and I'm here, right?
I'm sorry. That was for lack of a better term.
That I know, I'm with you. But I'm as grassroots as you get, right? We do have Jamani Williams, who is our public advocate. I'm super proud of that brother. In my other life, I'm a Black Studies professor. I used to teach at Brooklyn College.
Brooklyn College, right.
right. He was one of my students at Brooklyn College. He's somebody I worked with to help him get elected to city
Wow.
council. I was the co-chair, initially one of the co-chairs of his campaign to become public advocate. And he's still very grassroots, even though he's representing the whole city. He'll tell you he's a Flatbush kid all day, every day.
Definitely.
And I feel the same way, right? And so people should come to me, right? And a lot of times people don't know where they should go, so people should always come to me. You know, people should hit me up.
What's your email again? Let me put your email in.
Yeah. So first, my number, which is 718-629-6401. Again, that's 718-629-6401. And then my email is parker@nysenate.gov. That's parker@nysenate.gov. You know, but I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. You know, I'm on LinkedIn, right? I'm, you know, at Senator Parker and all of those places. Senator Kevin Parker at all those places. So, you know, people can find me. Like, you know, as I tell my staff, I'm in these streets like slum change. So, so there's not like, you know, we ain't hiding. Like we out here, right? And so, you know, getting access to programs, and then we have a lot of different organizations in this community that are doing really good work. Even though we're working on this new youth development center, I worked really hard with the Flatbush Y for a number of years to do work. I went to the Flatbush Y when I was younger, and we worked with them very closely to get programs there. I worked with, you know, my man Stan King over at the Boys and Girls Club down the block down on Bedford, right? The number of churches that are doing a lot of work. I work closely with a sister named Monique Waterman, who has East Flatbush Village, and they're you know, doing a lot of work. They're located right across on Farragut, right across from PS 198, right? And you know, but I mean, you know, there's lots of organizations that are doing work in the community that we've been trying to support. Sesame Flyers, which is on Church Avenue, they're not just a mass camp. Sesame Flyers does a lot of youth development programming, mostly through the Beacon School program. And so I've worked with them with everything from dance programs to leadership programs that they run. So there's another number of organizations that are doing work here. But if you reach out to me, you can always find somebody. If you reach out to City Councilwoman Farrah Lewis, she's another great resource. You know, we both have from the Assembly, both Assemblywoman Rodney Bashat, who's also now our Democratic County Leader, as well as the Deputy Speaker of the whole Assembly, Nick Perry, who represents this community as well. And so we have a lot of really good representation, and certainly let me not forget my good friend, Congresswoman Yvette D. Clarke, who's been doing a yeoman's job in Washington, both fighting Trump and then bringing resources home so that our community can continue to thrive.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, man. Sidebar a little bit. It's kind of customary that we get a Flatbush story from everybody from Flatbush. It could be funny, it could be embarrassing, it could be from as a kid. Anything you could think of, interaction with the community.
Wow. Look, first of all, I have so many stories.
Of course.
You know, like I said, having grown up in this community, I'll tell you two real quick. One when I was elected, and one when I was younger. So there used to be this gang, so when I moved here in 1976. I was the second black family on my block, right? So like I used to tell people, I used to get chased home from PS 193, you know, all through in 6th grade, right? Like for like 6 months, these kids used to chase me home. When I went to Huddy, you know, when I got to Huddy, and I think this was like 9th grade at Huddy, I was with a bunch of my boys, including Jerry King Turner, who I played football with at Midwood later on. Unfortunately, he just passed of COVID.
He just passed. That's
my dude.
Good,
Dude, King is my dude. Yeah, so Ibaye to him and his family.
Big shout to King. You went to school with King? It's a small world.
Man. That was my dude. Like, we used to run together hard.
He lives on my mother's block right now. He lived on my mother's
on East
block.
35th Street.
On 35th in K.
On 35th, yeah. So I used to hang on 35th, right?
Oh,
and so that was my dude. So like there was a group of kids. There was this white gang called the Kings Highway Boys, right? And they used to obviously open their Kings Highway, but like on Avenue L, like Nostra in that area, right? And so at the time, Huddy was very mixed, right? You know, Flatbush wasn't like it is now. Like we black now, right? But at the time, we wasn't like that, right? Like you couldn't, like when I was going to junior high school, you couldn't walk to Kings Plaza because you might get jumped. Like not by yourself. You might walk with a group, right? So this is going back like 1979, 1980, 81. You couldn't just be walking the streets like we walk the streets now, right?
A little different.
A lot different, right? So, you know, everybody started like talking like, yo, the Kings Highway boys are coming up after school. So we all got together, my whole crew, that, you know, because you couldn't walk back and forth by yourself. So it was me, kid named Clive Tracy, my boy Andy Lepke, Chris Johnson. Like we all like met and we like, let's hurry up and get out of here before we figure out what's going on. How come these guys were coming up to look for us? And particularly me, because the day before, a white boy had gotten my face, and I had gotten to a little you know, back and forth with him and pushed him, he pushed me, you know, a little tussle, but it wasn't nothing, like regular junior high school stuff, right? And so, you know, we leave. I didn't know this kid was related to the guy who headed the Kings Highway Boys. So the Kings Highway Boys ran up on us, pushed us all on the ground. Yo, we thought we was toast. Now, I'm the youngest of 5. I got 3 older brothers.
So you was...
So taking a behind whipping was Tuesday for me. So I was like, look, you behind whipping, like, I'm gonna just have to take this L right now, right? Like I was ready to catch the fade, right? And these guys are all older. They're all like high school kids, right? And he wanted me to fight his brother right there in front of him because his brother said that we had jumped him.
Oh.
And so I was like, yo, what's up? Let's knuckle up. Let's make this happen. And his brother didn't want no parts of it. But then they, you know, they pushed us all and like roughed us up a little bit and sent us on our way. But like we always talk about that story. Like that was
that's classic though. That's classic.
That's how Flatbush is.
Definitely.
Now let me tell you a quicker story. So I grew up in Vanderveer Park United Methodist Church, right on Glenwood Road on East 31st Street, right?
Right.
You know that church right around on the junction.
I know exactly
right?
what you're talking about.
So I've been going to that church for a long time. And shout out to Reverend Lyons, who's the pastor there now. But a number of years ago, was somebody who was a mentor of mine, Reverend Gleiger Beach. And he's retired now, and you know, God bless him and his family. But I was in church. I had been in office maybe about 5 or 6 years, and go to the church, say hello, and you know, politicking and all that stuff. So he says, you know, Senator, stand up. So I stand up. I'm waving to the people and giving them my best little medical wave and all of that. I think I'm fly. I got the little suit on and all of that Sunday morning. And he was like, I wanted you to stand up because I want the congregation to see how prosperous you become since we elected you senator. And so he got up and for 15 minutes berated me about how much weight I gained in front of the whole congregation.
You slowly.
So that's what I'm trying to tell you, right? Like people never let you forget where you came from.
No, we
in
can't.
This community, right?
You can't, man.
I tell people all the time, I'm only the senator in Albany. In Brooklyn, I'm just Kevin because I'm only the senator there. Because people here know me too long, and if you ever think that you bigger than the people, they're gonna quickly put you in your place.
Definitely. Especially when you know about Kings Highway Boys and Huddy Annex and the parking lot before Target. So you're a pretty seasoned guy. You got to make sure we keep you on your toes, man. But you know, we definitely appreciate everything you're doing, man. And like, I want to kind of ask you about like this thing's getting done, man. I feel like people complain a lot, and I hate to hear it. You know what I'm saying? And I just feel like if people knew better, I feel like Flatbush is a West Indian community. It's a lot of people that come from all over, and they might not know. You know, some people deal with Parliament. Some people have whole wars for election in some countries.
Right.
They just don't know. What do people need to do? Like, are petitions helpful? Is marching helpful? Is town hall meetings still good? Like, what are these avenues that we need to do?
People just need to be involved, right? People need to stop thinking about politics as an event and think about it as a process, right? It's not just about voting on election day, right? We have a Democratic primary coming up in the state of New York on Tuesday, June 23rd, right? And so people should participate in that election. But that's not really what politics is, not just that election, right? It's about who are the candidates and about helping pick the candidates, helping raise money for them, helping door knock for them, and getting your candidate elevated, right? But outside of that, it's about being engaged in the processes that happen every day to when people are making things happen, right? So if you live in an apartment building, then you should belong to the tenant association. If there is no tenant association, you should start a tenant association. If you live on a block, you should belong to the block association or the civic association. If there isn't one, you should start one, right? You should not just go to church. You should be involved in the ministries of the church, right? And if there's a ministry that you're interested in that the church doesn't have, then I invite you to talk to your pastor about starting that ministry. And I assure you, knowing most of the pastors I know around here, they're going to be open and receptive to help and to engagement with the work that they're already doing at these wonderful churches in this community, right? And so that's the first thing, and just be engaged, because a lot of times people don't know what's happening because they're not engaging in the institutions. I don't always have time. I represent 318,000 people, right? So again, we didn't go through my whole community, but I represent part of Canarsie and part of Flatlands, right? But principally East Flatbush, Midwood, Ditmas Park, Windsor Terrace, and Park Slope, right? So it's 318,000 people. I don't have time all the time to talk to every single person individually, right? So I'm going where people are at, right? And so I'm going to, the churches, right? I'm at Tabernacle of Praise. I'm at, New Life Fellowship on Avenue D, right? Like
East Brooklyn Congregation.
Right. I'm there, right? I'm at Community Board 17, Community Board 18, Community Board 14, right? I'm at the 67th Precinct Council, right? I'm at those places, or my representatives are at those places. I'm at the block associations, right? So like J Park, right? We all call it J Park. But the name of that park is called Amherstford Park. I was elected before I knew the name of that park. I'm like, where's Amherstford Park? I've been living here the whole time. Yeah, but Avenue J Park is Amherstford Park, right? So like I represent that. I represent that part. So you learned something today, right? You didn't know that.
For real. I didn't know that.
No, I know. And it's signs that say it. Nobody else reads the sign.
But it was always like a half a sign. And then I remember we used to play football there, but they got real slick. I don't know who did this. I don't know who did it, city council or what. They put hills in the middle with like trees and different stuff in it, so you couldn't play football after a while. Yeah,
because families were complaining there wasn't enough like green space, because I was one of those people too. We used to be running up. We used to be in there like it was Giant Stadium. Like
as soon as it snows, you go to J Park.
That's right. But right, so I represent like over in that area, right? And so like just knowing the people, and they have an association that represents just that community, the Amherstford Gardens kind of community, right, around the park. So just connecting with those. I go to block association meetings when I get invited, right? I go to civic association meetings. So organizing yourselves on a tenant levels, block association level is the way to get attention from any elected official, right? Because politics is a numbers game, right? It's a numbers game. It's about, right, like I am who I am, not when I'm going to Albany, not because I'm Kevin Parker and I got the best bow tie collection, but it's because I represent 318,000 people. And so when I'm in Albany, right, and I'm going to talk to the governor, right, or talking to somebody else, they know I represent 318,000 people. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
And so, right, and so it is that collection. So in my community, if you're a block association president, right, and you got 50 families, that's important to me, right? If you're in a building, right, like if you Marietta Small, who's the head of the tenant association in Flatbush Gardens, right, I'll message with you because I got to deal with you. If I go into Glenwood Houses and I got to deal with the tenant association president, Ms. Hightower, she got 40 buildings there, right? And technically all those. So I got to deal with those folks, right? Like those are my bosses, right? Those who I check in with to make sure everything, because I can't talk to everybody in Flatbush Gardens. So I'm going to go talk to the tenant association
the
president.
masses, yeah.
Come to the meeting so I can get a sample of what's going on. So if you really want to be engaged, on a consistent level, it's really organizational participation that's going to get you that engagement.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's good to know, because numbers is definitely a numbers game, and it only makes sense. I mean, you're not going to come individually knocking on doors. The population is too great. Let me ask you this: you said with politics and stuff. I always want to know, like, as far as you work with a lot of different senators and things like that, people use the word politics as kind of like being fake. I'm politicking. It's like Hollywood. do you truly have friends and working relationships, or does the Kevin Parker team work with the so-and-so team, or do you guys really get things done? Like, what's going on behind the scenes?
Both happens, right? Like, you have some people who you have really good relationships. Like, one of the things that happens in Flatbush is that now all of us are really connected, right? And I'm not saying that we agree on everything every time, right? And, you know, I would say we're like a family. And as you know, families fight and families disagree, right? And that's why you have different levels of government, and that's why you have different representations. You have districts
For balance.
That granular thing. I have a great personal relationship with Rodney Brashat, for instance, our county leader and one of the assemblywomen in the 42nd Assembly District. Nick Perry, I used to work for Nick, right? I started my political career working for Nick Perry, right? Farrah Lewis is somebody who I know. She's really involved in her church, and I've known her for about 15 years since I first got elected because of the work that she was doing, and she worked for Jamani. Again, I told you I go back with Jamani 30 years, right? And so, and Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. Before I worked for Nick Perry, I actually worked for Yvette Clarke's mother, Una Clarke, right? Who was the city councilwoman, you know, in the 40th. We in the 45th, a little bit further up. In the 40th, I used to work for her. I worked on her first campaign, right? I was the first ever hired. So I know Yvette, again, 30 years. And so it's those relationships that I think have endured to, and then even, let me talk about Diana Richardson, who represents a little bit more Crown Heights, but a lot of people know her. Diana Richardson used to work for me, right?
Good to know.
Right. So I joke with her that Nick Perry's her political grandfather, because I used to work for Nick and she used to work for me, right? And she got elected, right? So, you know, and so, like, again, we don't always agree on everything, right? And we battle, but we talk to each other, and that's what I'm saying. And politics is a process. Just like, Taj, you and I are not going to always agree. Me and Marietta Smalls are not going to always agree. But the thing I'm dedicated to is that conversation and the mutual respect of understanding that when you come to me and you need something or you want something done and I disagree about it, that you are coming from a place that's genuine in terms of wanting to help the community, right? And if we start at that place, then we can work out the rest of the rest of the things. So on a local level, I think it's mostly love. Again, it's not perfect, but it's mostly love. A lot of times you get into that other kind of dynamic when you start talking about how we deal with upper elected officials, right? But even there, I have a lot of relationships, right? So for instance, I worked on Hillary Clinton's campaign. When I worked at Hillary Clinton's campaign, you know who the campaign manager was when Hillary Clinton ran for the U.S. Senate in New York State?
Who?
Mayor Bill de Blasio.
De Blasio, right? You absolutely.
So
right.
I used to work for Bill de Blasio on the campaign, right? So I know the mayor well, right? When I first got elected to the Senate and I represented Park Slope, he was one of the city council people, right? So we have a relationship. Andrew Cuomo, I worked for his father.
Yeah.
Right? It was the first Governor Cuomo, right? Mario. Yes. So again, you have those relationships, but then again, a lot of times you may be disagreeing, right? Like sometimes me and the mayor disagree about stuff, but me and the mayor have different jobs. The mayor is concerned about the entire city of New York, and he's making decisions on that basis. The governor's making decisions on the basis of the entire state of New York. With all due respect, I love my colleagues in Buffalo and Rochester and Syracuse, but my job is to represent Flatbush. Right? And so how I'm gonna see things and how I'm coming at things, how I'm gonna approach things is gonna be a lot different, right? And so I think that I know people think that it's fake, but a lot of times it's also a competitive situation, right? So even though we have the third largest budget in the entire country after the federal government in the state of California, the state of New York, even at $180 billion, is a finite number. I'm competing for dollars with my colleagues. Like, for instance, I'm competing with Zelno Myrie, who represents the district right across from me, right? So even though, we both represent Brooklyn, we don't represent the same part of Brooklyn, right? And so we're competing for dollars, and that's my dude. He's super smart, love working with him, but we compete, right? I'm competing with Diane Savino, who represents Staten Island and part of Coney Island, right? I'm competing with her. And so that
you saying compete, though? Compete for what, though? Resources?
For resources.
And is this like, how does resources disperse as far as schools? Somebody just asked an interesting question in the comments about District 22 schools and unprecedented amount of shutdowns. How does these things take place? And how are these things dealt with? How do we deal with it? Straight to you?
Right. So there are actually three different budgets, right? So you
Okay.
have the federal government's budget, you have the state of New York's budget, and the city of New York's budget, right?
Okay.
And so on each level, you're fighting for education dollars. So on the federal level, you're asking Chuck Schumer, right, who lives in Brooklyn, right, and Kirsten Gillibrand, our 2 U.S. senators, and then you're asking Yvette Clarke, right, who's the representative here, Hakeem Jeffries. By the way, Hakeem Jeffries with the Midwood, right?
Yeah, right, definitely.
And by the way, Yvette with the Murrow.
Did she?
Yeah, she went to Murrow, right? So like they're kids from right around here. Like these people ain't all over the place. They from right here, right?
Definitely.
And so you asking them to bring back money, right? And then on the city level, you have Farrah Lewis, you have Dr. Matthew Eugene, right, who are fighting to bring money back to this back to our community, right? And then you have people like me and Roxanne Prasad, who represents Flatlands, represents Canarsie, and then Zelnor Myrie, who represents Northern Flatbush and Crown Heights and those areas, right? Like we're all competing, and even to a certain degree, me and Rodney's, even though we mostly overlap, and me and Nick Perry overlap, we have our particular projects within the context of our districts that we're fighting over as well, right? And so you should talk to everybody about budget. Now, and we talk about education in particular, education is actually funded on the state level primarily, right? Mm. In the city of New York, it is the Department of Education and the mayor and the chancellor that makes the decision about where that money goes once it comes here. But mostly my fight is about bringing that money to New York City, to Brooklyn, and then fighting with the mayor and the chancellor to bring it to Flatbush, East Flatbush, Midwood, Ditmas Park, Windsor Terrace, and Park Slope. If that makes any sense.
No,
right?
definitely. I see the trickle down. I can see how that trickles down. You said you have a pretty decent relationship with the mayor, correct?
Yes.
What's his? I mean, you obviously can't speak for him. I'm not asking you to speak for him, but what do you think the sentiment is with like all the? I heard you leave a great public announcement the other day about the mask, and
right.
I think it was an executive order. I'm gonna get into who sets executive orders in a second, but the way the handling of it and the police brutality, especially during this time, what do you think the mayor what's the sentiment down there? Is there a plan for this? Because it seems like it's a war against the community, and it shouldn't be like that.
Right. But if you've noticed over the last week, that has tapered off. Right.
I heard there was some things in place about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's tapered off a lot. I mean, the government. I mean, first of all, let me give a lot of credit to the first person, which is our DA, District Attorney Eric Gonzalez, who's a good friend and who I think has been fantastic. But he essentially came forward and said, look, I'm not prosecuting nobody over wearing a mask, right? So that essentially shut a lot of the police stuff down, because why are you arresting people and doing all this other stuff if in fact there's going to be no prosecution, right? So that tempered a lot of the hostility down, right? And then I think the mayor certainly, I think came forward and was really forceful about the fact that we have to do better in terms of our relationships, right? Things have gotten a lot better under him than they were under Bloomberg, and definitely better than they were under
Giuliani,
right?
Yeah, that's a fact.
But they haven't been perfect, and he's been trying to turn a battleship in a bathtub, and so it's really difficult in terms of like the attitudes, right? Part of what we got to do in our community, because I think there's always some level of
responsibility,
individual responsibility,
definitely,
is that you got to be careful how you move with the police. You gotta like, Google me. Like I've been in handcuffs. Like I've been in my situations with the police. I've never gotten assaulted by the police. Why? Because I understand that when the police are executing an arrest, they have very wide latitude in how they can operate, right? Mm-hmm. You even look at Jamani when he got arrested a couple of years ago, and all he was doing civil disobedience, and he was an official, and they threw him up against a car and was roughing him up, right? You got to be very, very careful, and you got to, I'm going to just tell people, those cops, let's say the vast majority of police officers, by the way, the city of New York has the largest standing police force in the world, right? Over 30,000 cops, right? The vast, vast, vast majority of those cops are good people. They're there for the right reasons and are trying to serve the various communities of the city and do so with distinction. That when we see these cops on video and whatever, I wouldn't say it's a war, because even though we're seeing a lot of videos, when you count all the cops and put it against 40,000, they're not even.
Back to the numbers, it doesn't.
They're not even a fraction, right? but it's still too many. And so I'm not justifying it. I'm simply saying, don't put every cop in the basket with those cops who are inappropriately behaving with folks, right?
Well, you know what, you're right, and I think what happens is that we see all those videos, right? And then especially for those people that nowadays that live only on the internet, you know,
right.
They just see these same things over and over again.
Right.
And you said at the beginning that you came up in your community, saying
right.
hi to people, in contact with people. You don't see that, but then when you see that, it's easy to say all cops are bad because
right.
You know, for the 2 cops that I saw in my life, not me per se, but the
right.
2 cops that somebody saw, they're 2 for 2 for bad business. You know what
right.
I'm saying? So
right.
it's understandable. I think it has to be definitely a plan in place, and maybe it's these tenant meetings, maybe it's these block associations.
So, well. In addition to that, right, one of the things that every single precinct has is a community council, right? And so I encourage people. I should have mentioned this when I was talking about being involved in your community and being involved in politics. You could join your police community council. Every precinct has one, right? So if you live at the junction, for instance, it's the 70th, right? If you live east of that, it's the 6-7. If you live south of that, it's the 6-3, right? 6-3. And so those are the main 3 that represent the vast majority of Flatbush, right?
What's it called again?
The Community Police Council.
And what do they do?
So there's a group of citizens, and they literally meet monthly, and anybody can go to the meeting. You don't even have to join. You can join if you like, and I encourage people to participate, but you don't even have to join. You can just show up to the meeting. So let's say you had a problem with a particular cop or a problem where things happen, and almost every month they have a monthly meeting, usually in the evening. It's always in the evening, and usually the commander of the precinct is there. So if you want to see the commander of the precinct once a month, that's always a good opportunity to show up and express yourself and express your concerns. And most of the time, honestly, when you go to those meetings, it is not people complaining about the cops. And if they're complaining, they're mostly complaining about not having enough police protection, right? Like I say this all the time. The big problem in the Black community is not over-policing, it's under-policing. The frustration, you know what the frustration is? The frustration is not that we get beat up for not putting on masks and white people are getting handed out masks, right? That's a little bit of it, right? The severity of how we're treated. But the main job is if, God forbid, somebody gets hurt in this community, the police take forever to show up. We don't get the same police protection. You know that, and I know that.
That's
we don't
a fact.
get the same protection in this community that white people get in their communities. That's the problem, and that's where people have. If we got the same, see, that's why white people are like, "What are you talking about?" Because they're okay with a behind whipping from somebody because they get excellent police service, right?
But is this because they go to the community police council, or
it's both? It's both. It's because they're white and they have privilege, right? And that white privilege, to be honest with you, extends to even Black people, right? Because even we give white people better treatment than we give ourselves oftentimes.
Man, I say that all the time. We'll be quick to assault each other and let somebody else come through, and we don't say nothing to them.
That's right. That's right. And that happens in all walks, not just with the police. That happens at the post office. That happens with everything, right?
Customer service, yep.
That's right. And so some of it is that, right? And some of it is that they are more concerned, but also at the higher echelons of the police department, it's still a white boys club, right? And so you got a bunch of white guys who are overseeing that system, and of course they skew it towards their own people, right? And it shouldn't be that way. And I think that the mayor does an excellent job at trying to provide equal access to police services and making sure that people are serving our community with dignity and respect.
But we have to apply, though. We have to apply.
Yes. And so what would change that is us being involved with the community board, being involved with our precinct councils, being involved with the tenant association, because the cops also, when they show up and they know you, it's a different relationship than when this is the first, they don't know who you are. They just telling you to break up your fet in your backyard, right? and that kind of thing.
Well, I remember a couple of years ago, I went to a civil liberties union meeting in Manhattan. Somebody said, you need to come down. Something going on. This was years ago. And I went. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is a great time to voice my opinion. And I got there, and I was the only Black guy. And I had dreads. And when I got there, it was like, this is the problem. And all these people just turned around and looked at me. Like, I'm looking at myself. I thought I was going to come down here. It was going to be like a fight the power of public enemy video. And it was just me.
Right. You're not going to have that experience if you go to the local precinct council. And let me just say, an ACLU meeting, and ACLU is the American Civil Liberties Union, for people who may not know.
Right.
and they're mostly a legal organization that fights for the protection of rights for people on terms of their constitutional rights, and they've been great advocates. But you're going to get a better outcome if you're concerned about community issues from going to, like, I live in the 6-7, by going to the 6-7 precinct council meeting, right, or the 6-3 or the 7-0 precinct council meeting. You get to know not just the commander, but more importantly, the community affairs police officers who are the ones who are dealing with things. And like I said, typically when I go to those meetings, and you can correct me if you go and you check it out, you hear more people saying we need more presence of cops, not less presence, because there's a lot of, because we're under police, and a lot of times, like I said, we're being victims, and things are happening because we don't have enough police taking care, of our community. So,
yeah, that's.
But
let me ask you this: every parent has a favorite child, so to speak.
That's right.
Right. You got Flatbush, Park Slope. You got Midwood. You didn't say Kensington. Is Kensington Windsor Park now?
I have a little piece of Kensington. I used to have Kensington and Borough Park for 10 years, and then they redistricted me in 2012, and now I represent a little piece of Kensington, so I kind of leave them out. But I have Ditmas Park, Windsor Terrace, and Park Slope.
So do you have a favorite? Or is that a silly question?
I live at the junction. I live at the junction. So, whatever I'm gonna do close to my house. Like, my office is right there on East 31st Street and Tilden. It's actually on Tilden and East 31st Street, right off of Nostrand Avenue.
Wow.
So I could pretty much walk to work, right? I'm right down the block from Phil's Academy, right? Right down the block from the cemetery, right? Around the corner from Radio Pond New, right? So, like, this is my community, right? Like, and so this is where I live. And other, I spread the love, but I'm a junction kid.
I feel you. Me too, Senator. Me too, man. You still aspire? You said you started off this journey aspiring for president. Do you still aspire for that, or you just want to be a junction kid and hold us down?
Look, I am right now exploring a run for city controller, and so I'm looking into that, raising money.
City controller.
Scott Stringer is currently the city controller,
right?
And he's going to be termed out and running for mayor, and so and so that's going to be a vacant office, and so I'm giving that some thought. But right now we're in the middle of this pandemic. All of my focus really just is on trying to get through this period, right? Like, people and people, I think, really don't understand that this is a monumental dynamic that we're dealing with, epoch, right? Like, this is going to change our human history forever, right? Yeah. We're going to be talking about 3 periods going forward, right? Before COVID, right? BC, right?
The new BC.
Before COVID, right? It's going to be AC after COVID, and it's going to be the COVID period. And this COVID period, by the way, even though in the next month we're probably going to be relaxing the stay-at-home order, right? We're not relaxing social distancing. We're going to be relaxing our stay-at-home order. It's going to be relaxed and probably end over the next month, right? But the COVID period is still going to be going on until we get a vaccine or a cure.
How you feel about the vaccine situation?
Well, I'm hoping that they get one sooner than later. Obviously, because we can't get back to anything that looked like what we did, prior to now until we have a vaccine. And so we'll see what happens. I mean, I think they're being very optimistic about getting one. Let me put it in some context. HIV and AIDS is a virus as well, right? It's been 40 years. We still have no cure and no vaccine for AIDS, right?
Or the flu.
Right. Well, no, there are
we got a vaccine.
For the flu. But I'm saying for AIDS, there isn't one, right? The difference in the coronavirus is that we actually have a history of success with corona-type viruses like the flu. So we have developed vaccines for coronaviruses. So we believe that based on our past history of being successful with other coronaviruses and developing vaccines for them, that we're going to develop a vaccine for this COVID-19 virus. And so I'm trying to be optimistic. I'm hoping that it happens sooner than later. But that period is going to be going on for a while, right? And so really for the next, it can go on 3 years. I mean, but at least, let's think about this. Your boy, Dr. Fauci, is saying that the earliest that we're going to see a vaccine is January, right? And so he walks up and says, voila, I have the vaccine here. It's still going to take you 6 months to start manufacturing it.
It's going to take people in our community 60 years to start taking it. Because it's like, if you say it, it would be different. Like right now, I said if Barack was still president, he was like, everybody stay home, we stay home. If he was behind it, we know it would be somewhat genuine. Like, I think people look at history and it's just like, do we really want to you just beat my butt, took me to the precinct. Right. Now when I come out the precinct, you're telling me I got, not you, but police, these people, you know who I'm speaking of, is telling me that. So it's a lot of skepticism, just like with the census. People don't want to participate.
Look. There is going to be a lot of skepticism. Right. I think that it is warranted skepticism. Right. Again, I told you before, in my other vocation, I'm an Africana Studies professor. Right, so we can't act like we can't act like the Tuskegee experiment didn't happen.
Tuskegee, exactly.
We can't act like fertilization experiments on Black women and babies didn't happen. Right, all that stuff is real.
Planned Parenthood, all that good stuff.
Right. We can't act like none of that stuff didn't happen. And I know a lot of people in our community are anti-vaxxers. I've been joking with everybody that if you see the movie I Am Legend, that remember the zombies got created because of the cure to cancer.
Yeah.
Not because of it. Right. So I'm not gonna be that. I'm gonna let them do this first round of vaccines first, and then catch me on the second, third round.
Catch me on a couple of rounds, Senator. I'm waiting with you. I'm behind you on the line. We're gonna have our bow ties on, and we're waiting. We're gonna wait to take ours.
In the meantime, we gotta really spend a lot of time with improving the health of our community, right?
From natural stuff, man.
It's not just natural stuff, right? Because we're on this thing of, I can take this to be better. I can take this thing to be better. We have to be better. We have to exercise. We have to stop eating fried foods. Eric Adams has been on this kick for 4 years, trying to get us to get our GAC together. And, he wound up with type 2 diabetes and turned it all the way around by changing the way he eats. And a lot of us in our community are going to need to do that. Exercise, eating fresh fruits and vegetables, right? Drinking plenty of water, getting sleep. Like, those natural things will help you. So even if you get COVID, it won't be a death sentence. So many people have died in our community, not because the government didn't do its job, not because the hospitals failed us. It's because we failed ourselves by not having our health together. Because we have these comorbidities, because we have high cholesterol and high blood pressure and obesity and asthma and all of these things, and oftentimes are not even properly stress, right? But we need to do those things. And then when you take your vitamin C, take zinc, ginger, garlic, I know people doing elderberry and sour and I was gonna say
moringa,
sea moss,
right?
Oregano oil, black seed oil, I'm
vitamin C, anything with vitamin C.
I'm with all that all day, but that's not going to save you if you have high blood pressure and asthma and high cholesterol, right? I mean, this community, right? Well, they'll tell you. I did an IG live last week with Dr. Wayne Riley from downstate, and he said that the two highest numbers in the entire borough. So it's also, let's look at Brooklyn. Brooklyn's the third largest city. If we were our own city, we'd be the third largest city in the entire country, right? So Brooklyn, outside of New York City and LA, Brooklyn is larger than Chicago, larger than Houston, larger than Detroit, larger than Boston, larger than Philly, larger than Miami, larger than Atlanta, right? Brooklyn's larger than all those places, right? The two highest zip codes in the entire for COVID was 11203 and 11226, right here in the community, right?
We got the most fruit stands. We got the most.
But we're not properly balancing that stuff, and we eating way too much fried and greasy and foods. We're not balancing it, and we're not exercising the way we should. So we're really gonna have to really look at self, because white people are not gonna save us. We're clear about that, right?
We got the government,
and I am the government. And I'm telling you, the government is not gonna save you, right? That we're gonna have to save ourselves, right? And so we're gonna need to have to take care of ourselves, eat better, exercise, right? Meditate, go to church, balance our stress. Like, we're gonna need to do all of the things. And I say church, your whatever your spiritual institution is, right? Church, synagogue, mosque, temple, right? Do your thing. But we're gonna really need to
get right with the spirit within,
with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And then you can do all that other. We can do that other stuff, and that will help us.
Man, I just think starts cutting us off and getting like real weak and crazy at this time. It's running down. I want to say, man, I want to speak for Flatbush when I say we appreciate you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you, man. We want to see you rock out, man. We got your back. Whatever you do, we got your back. We pinned the number there. Everybody's probably gonna hit you up with different things and questions. I wish we had a longer time.
Can I give you a couple of different things before we run?
Of course. I just wanted to say that. But
yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on. So I want to just shout out Raven Robinson, who's my media assassin, right? And she's the one who takes care of me. So she don't know y'all. She like, yo, these cats from We Are Flatbush are trying to get you on their show. And I was like, yeah, those my peoples. I was like, let's do that, right? She like, if it ain't CNN or Channel 7.
Man, we got you, man. It's funny because my PR guy, we got positions over here.
Yeah.
He's who was contacting you. He's a hood, but he's like, yo, we need the senator, and we gotta get him. Big shout out to Pop. Like, I gotta call the senator. We gotta get somebody. All of us sound like me. He's like, we want somebody to call that sounds a little studious. But I said, man, it's the senator, man. Somebody else. One of my partners, he grew up on H. He said you helped him get the block party on his block. He's like,
yes, sir.
Do this from around the way. Just call him. So
we appreciate that, man. I work for y'all, so anytime y'all want me on the show, if I can make it work with our schedules, I'll come back as many times as you have me.
We appreciate that. Anytime, and that's vice versa. If you feel like we got the ears of Flatbush, we all here together. That's why we call it We Are Flatbush, because it's all of us. All you gotta do is hit us up, man. Whatever you want to do, the platform is yours, brother.
Awesome, I appreciate it. I want to just give people some information. So if people have pencil and pens, now's the time. I just want to give y'all some info that y'all should just have. Again, you can always reach out to me, and I'll put you in touch with what you need. But one of the first things that we did in the state legislature is we gave the governor a bunch of emergency powers. We gave him $40 million so he can help address the issues. We knew that the $40 million was going to be a drop in the bucket, but we just wanted to begin with that conversation. And the first things he did is he created a hotline. Right, really a helpline, 24 hours a day, staffed person helpline, right, and a website. So I want to give everybody that number. The helpline is 888-364-3065. Again, that's 888-364-3065. Call that number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's always a person there. And any information that you need, if you have questions or concerns, anything about COVID, anything about the coronavirus, about places to get tested, if you want to actually schedule a test for yourself, you can call that number. You can get into all of that stuff there. And then we have a corresponding website, right? Just want to get some quick information, www.coronavirus.health.ny.gov. Again, that's www.coronavirus.health.ny.gov. And that website will give you, again, all the information that you need. And that's the State Department's health information on coronavirus or COVID-19 or whatever you need, right? I know mad people having problems with unemployment. I apologize on behalf of the state. We have had exponentially more, like something like 60 times more requests around
I don't want to cut off. It's going to like 5 seconds. I don't want to be rude and it be disrespectful, man. So I'm letting you know that now.